All right, what's going on, guys? Today I wanted to talk about champion pools and more specifically how to build your champion pool. Because I often get asked like, "Hey man, I'm playing like this champion. Like, should I be adding another champ to my champ pool? Like, who's a good champion to add with Jax? Who's a good champ to pair with this champion?" And so I thought I can answer that and give you guys the best way to build your champion pool in order to climb. I'm someone who I played a lot of different champs over the years as I played League, and also when I played competitively for my college team, I had to have a really diverse and big champion pool. So I can definitely give you guys some insights on the best way to build your champ pool and how that can affect your solo queue climb. So let's get into it. The first thing, one tricking a champion. This is the best. Now it's kind of ironic because I'm talking about building a champion pool. Being an OTP is the best way to climb and improve at the game fast. No matter what. You know, you can tell me whatever you want. This is the best way. Okay? Look at any rank 1 player. They're usually an OTP. Look at, you know, a lot of high elo players are OTPs. And there's a reason for it, right? You improve the fastest. You learn matchup knowledges. You learn knowledge of matchups like to a T. If your main champ... Sorry, this is a random bullet. If your main champ gets picked or banned, you kind of just dodge, right? That's kind of what a lot of OTPs do. But some have, like, a secondary champ that they'll play, right? Like, maybe they'll just pick Garen if their main champ gets banned, which can work, right? But as I said, you'll notice a lot of rank 1 players are one-tricks, right? We have Potent with Fiora, Viper with Riven, TF Blade with Jax, right? So one-tricking champions is definitely a great way to climb, and you don't really need a big champ pool for this, obviously. You're an OTP. So yeah, ignore the next few slides if you want to be an OTP. But there's still stuff that's relevant at the end of this. Yeah. So, moving on to low elo, right? If you're lowish elo, like, I would say plat and below, pick one main champion, and then 2 side champs that you'll play if your main champ is picked or banned, right? Do not get stuck in the trap that a lot of low elo players get in, where they play a new champion every week because they get bored. It's like, oh, I'm bored of playing this champ. Like, let me just start playing this guy or this guy or this guy, right? Unless your goal isn't just to climb. Because you will get better at the game and improve your general knowledge from playing a lot of different champions, right? Like, it helps... Playing a champion helps you learn how to play against that champion. It gives you a better idea of their cooldowns. It gives you a better idea of a lot of things, right? So putting reps on a lot of different champs isn't bad. It also can help you find a champ that you would like to one-trick. But in general, if your goal is just to gain rank fast, then don't play a new champ every week, right? Don't try out a lot of new champs because that's just not the way to do it. So an example of a champion pool will be like Jax is your main, and then you play Garen and Set, who are both easy champions. You play those 2 on the side. That could be an example of a low elo champion pool. And then, as you get better, right, you start going from like Plat, Emerald, Diamond. You can slowly start to add champions to your champ pool, right? You'll get better over time. And with this new skill, right, you'll have more knowledge from the game because you learn faster when you have a small champ pool. So you'll learn things like wave management quicker, you'll improve your mechanics, you'll learn matchups, and yeah, at this point you can start to add more champions if you wish, right? So maybe now Jax and Fiora are your main champions, and you threw in Olaf as well for a side champ because he's pretty easy to play and he's a good blind pick. You know, so maybe Olaf is one of your side champs. This might lead to you, like, enjoying the game more. And, yeah. The thing is, like, once you main a champ for a while and you climb on them, you can always go back to that champion, right? Like, for me, my example is I played Garen as a one-trick to get to Masters. And then once I was Masters, I diversified my champ pool. And so, no matter what, I can always go back to playing Garen. And I have good Garen mechanics, and I know how to play the champ. I have a good understanding of his limits. And that's kind of how it is when you like pick one champion to main and then add others slowly. You can always go back to that champ, and you'll always know how to play them, right? So then you can start to add other champions. In high elo, so this is for those of you that are diamond and above, right? We're going to talk about blind picks and counter picks. So the best thing, this is probably the best thing you can do for climbing aside from being an OTP. is to have your blind picks that you pick on blue side, or sometimes red if the person won't give you last pick, and then have your counter picks, which are champions that you lock to specifically counter popular picks, right? So this will rarely lead to you having like shitty matchups, right? Which is nice. If you have good blind picks, the chances of you ever getting caught in a really shit matchup are low, obviously, because you're playing champs that are good blind, right? So obviously, with this this fourth bullet point, when you're blind picking, pick your best blind picks, right? And then you have some champs that you only play as counters. So an example of your blind picks could be champs like Aatrox, Rumble, Warwick, Kennen, Renekton, Cassante, stuff like that are great blind picks because they don't have a lot of hard counters. And then an example of your counter picks could be something like Gwen, who's a really good counter pick but not good blind. Cho'Gath, again, same thing, right? Can really counter a lot of like melee bruiser champions, but he's not good blind pick, right? Same with Garen, you know? So as you get higher elo and pick order matters more, it's really good to have a set of blind picks and a set of counter picks. When I first hit Challenger, what I would do is I was a Jax, Fiora, Aatrox player, right? And sometimes I played Gwen, Garen, and Camille. And so my blind picks were Jax and Aatrox, right? And then I would use Fiora, Camille, and Gwen and Garen as counter picks, right? So I would never blind any of those four, but I would blind Aatrox and Jax because I was comfortable with them into every matchup compared to the other champions in my pool. But the other champs in my pool could be really strong counter picks that could win me games. Yeah, this is another thing. Niche counter picks, right? So these are applicable if there's one or two champs that you just really fucking hate playing against, right? So I have some examples here. Let's say you really, really hate playing against Riven, right? Learn Cho'Gath as just a niche counter pick, right? Where you only play Cho'Gath when you're against Riven, right? I do that. I genuinely do this against Riven. If my team needs a tank and I'm 5th pick and they blind Riven, I will pick Cho'Gath, but that is the only champ I pick Cho into because I just know the matchup really well, and I win it every single time. Same with like Aatrox, you can pick Gwen, Darius, Wukong is a really niche counter pick to Darius, right? Wukong doesn't beat many champs top lane, but I picked him up when I was playing competitive because he specifically stomps Darius. He shits on him. It's a really easy matchup to play. You bring Ignite. And so picking up a champion for one specific matchup that you normally struggle against, like let's say you have no good picks in a Riven or Darius or whatever, can be a really good idea for your climb, especially if the champion's a popular pick, like Darius or Aatrox, right? It can be a really good idea to just learn the easiest counter to play and then specifically pick that champion only for that matchup. Can really work well, right? And now I'm just going to talk about different classes of champs that you can build a champ pool with, right? So, range champs. Range champs like to build a lead early through CS leads, right? They like to get plates. They like to constantly have push so that they can help their team with grubs and shit like that. Range champs are really hard to execute. If you're low through mid elo, I would not recommend playing range top laners. It's just not worth it. You're going to fuck up. You're going to get ganked a lot. You're going to die. It's hard. It's a hard play style. They don't scale that well, right? Like most of these champs get outscaled by the hyper-scaling melee champions. But if you are high elo and you learn them, they're very consistent, right? It's a pretty easy laning phase. You just shove the enemy laner in, harass them under tower. Range champs can be really good counter picks as well. But yeah, overall, I wouldn't recommend building a champ pool with these unless you're like diamond and above, right? Tanks. Tanks are great to have like one or two of them in your champ pool. So maybe I was talking about you have your main champ and two side champs. Maybe make one of them Dr. Mundo or make one of them Cho'Gath, right? Just an easy tank that you can play when needed because tanks are really easy to execute. They can be really good counter picks and blind picks. The reason I wouldn't recommend like one-tricking tanks or maining a tank is because it's hard to carry as a tank. It's really hard to carry games as a tank. Maybe Mundo you can. He's probably the best hard carry tank champion. But for the most part, you're really reliant on your team because you just don't deal enough damage to kill the enemy champions, right? So I think tanks are great to have in your champ pool, but don't one-trick them. Don't main them, is my personal suggestion. I don't think it's a good idea. 1v9 duelers. This is my champ pool. This is what I like, right? These guys are hard to execute. They're going to take you hundreds of games to learn. But when you do learn them, it's going to be really easy to carry games. Much easier than like their tank counterparts or like other bruisers, right? So these champions are the best one tricks, right? And you'll see a lot of one trick players play champs like this. There's a lot of Riven one tricks, a lot of Fiora one tricks, a lot of Jax one tricks, a lot of Gwen one tricks, a lot of Camille one tricks, right? People one trick these champions more than others just because they're really good to carry games, and they require a high skill ceiling, right? You need to have a lot of knowledge to execute these champions, and so it's hard to just play them casually, if that makes sense. Like you got to put a lot of games on them. So they're very popular one tricks. The best players in solo queue usually play these champions, right? The people that carry the hardest from top lane play champs like these. And yeah, just my personal opinion, I think these champs are the most fun in the game. So take that as you will. I really enjoy playing 1v9 duelers. I think they just have a really fun play style. You play to win your lane, you play to get 1v1 kills in the side lane, sometimes 1v2s, and overall they have a lot of carry potential, right? Next we have strong early bruisers. Okay, these are great to teach you. I should include a Renekton too. These motherfuckers are great to learn in low elo, right? These guys will teach you how to shit stomp opponents when they make mistakes. And I'm sure a lot of you low elo players fucking hate these guys. I'm sure you guys can't fucking stand like Darius and Set and Mordekaiser because they're pretty easy to win your lane. They're pretty easy to execute. And yeah, they're just like low elo stompers, right? These strong early bruisers. You don't see them as much in high elo because they fall off a lot. The only one here who's consistently played a lot in high elo is Garen, actually, funny enough, at the moment. So yeah, these guys often don't scale very well in terms of skill, right? The higher you go on the rank ladder, the less applicable these champions are. They're not as great, right? They become like niche counter picks. So yeah, these champs are good to start out with, and like I would recommend, if you want to, fully go for maining one of these champions. Like Darius, Garen, Mord, Set, Olaf, whatever, Renekton are great mains. You just need to expand your champ pool later on. Don't get stuck playing, like being an OTP for one of these champs, because you're going to be kind of limited. You're going to run into a roadblock eventually where games are really hard to carry, and it's because of your champion, right? And finally, we have niche champions. These are the champs that aren't very popular, right? Not a lot of people play them. They have really unique play styles, and so you have to invest a lot of time into learning them. But if you're that type of person, then go for it, right? These are your champs like Kled, Gangplank, Urgot. He hasn't played that much. He's played a lot more now, but he wasn't like a year ago. People like Quant have made him a lot more popular. Rengar, and Urgot also being in pro play, sorry. Just had to finish that thought. Rengar top, Warwick, right? These are these niche champions, and these are great one tricks as well. The reason being is that because they're so niche and not played a lot of people don't know their strengths and weaknesses, and they don't know the matchups. So like whenever I play against a Kled, the Kled is always at an advantage because he's played the matchup a lot more than I have, right? And yeah, so these guys can work at all elos. I've seen one tricks in every elo for all 5 of these champions. Like there's Challenger Rengar tops, there's Challenger Warwick tops, there's Challenger Gangplank players, obviously, Kled, Urgot, whatever. These guys can work at all elos because they're so niche and unique. It gives you kind of a knowledge gap and advantage in your games. But at the same time, they're niche and they have a unique playstyle, and that also can limit them, right? Like Gangplank is notoriously pretty weak early game, right? So you're not going to be like shit stomping the early game. Kled falls off against a lot of champions. Rengar is really coin flip. Warwick is also really coin flip. So like there are going to be some limitations, but these champs can carry you really far just based off a knowledge gap alone. And finally, the question everyone asks and wonders, what are the best champions to main? And my answer is this: my answer to this is any, really. Like, at the end of the day, just figure out your play style and what you enjoy. I know I said tanks aren't great to main, but you can. And if you enjoy playing tanks, then play tanks, dude. They can be pretty fun. Like some champs, it also brings up the discussion of playing a hard champ versus an easy champ, right? Like, yeah, if you main Garen and Dr. Mundo, you're gonna rank up faster because they're just easier to execute. But if, like, let's say you start out in gold and you get to emerald playing Mundo or like Garen, but then you want to start playing these harder champions that have more carry potential, well, all of a sudden you're going to fall back down to low platinum because your mechanics are dog shit because you play easy champions, right? And so, like, in terms of, like, your long-term improvement, it's not always best to main these easy champions, right? Like, I know coaches like Alois, for example, recommend people play, and got a lot of people playing, like, Mundo, Garen, Mordekaiser, Lowy, champs like this, right? And it's because they're easy to execute and you'll rank up faster. But are you actually getting better at the game? And if you don't enjoy playing those champions, is it even worth it, right? So when people ask me and they're like, yo, Hex, is it worth playing Jax in bronze? Is it worth playing Fiora in bronze? Yes. Yes, it is. If you think that those champs are fun, if you think you'll enjoy them, if you get really good at them, then learn them, because not only it might take you longer to rank up, but you'll learn mechanics way better than the person that plays Garen and ranks up faster but doesn't actually get better mechanically, right? It's like the whole idea of having a Diamond Garen versus Emerald Fiora. The Emerald Fiora has way better mechanics, but the Diamond Garen is higher rank, right? But when that Garen player starts hitting these higher elos, he might struggle to carry compared to the person that put the time in to learn Fiora or Riven or Jax or whatever, right? So at the end of the day, you just got to figure out your playstyle, figure out what you enjoy. And like most good players, most challenger players, if you ask them, they just picked a few champs that they really enjoyed, right? And they just played them. Right? They just played them all the way up. Like, I really liked Yasuo when I was in Platinum. And I didn't really care about ranking up that much. I just wanted to play Yasuo. And that's where I got most of my mechanical skill from, right? I actually have a lot of mastery on Yasuo, and it taught me mechanics. So even though I didn't climb as fast as I could, and I spent a few seasons in Plat and Diamond, it resulted in me getting really good mechanics and understanding things like, you know, playing to a champion's limit, being able to recognize when you can and can't fight stuff, right? Are things that playing these high skill ceiling champions will teach you that playing shit like Garen and Dr. Mundo will not. So yeah, at the end of the day, just like pick champions you like playing, pick champions that seem like fun, that you want to learn, and main those, right? If it's tanks, so be it. If it's range champs, so be it. Just figure out what you enjoy and play that shit and get really fucking good at it is the best way to climb in League and to improve overall at the game. So, if you have any questions, do feel free to drop them down below. I just thought I'd make this champion pool guide because I do get the question pretty often. Other than that, yeah, follow me on Twitch. Follow me, or like and subscribe to the video. Yeah, that was awkward. Thanks, guys, for watching. See you later.